It's Friday, the 22nd of May. From Channel M, this is the Lunchtime News, and these are today's headlines. A North West paedophile is being investigated over the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. Also coming up, Labour holds on to a council seat in part of Salford as the expenses row goes on.
Salford people completely reject the divisive, poisonous politics of the British National Party.
And feeling let down, literally, the drivers of 4x4s who found their tyres slashed.
We've got in the car this morning. There's been a note on the front, on the windscreen, with a few bullet points saying how bad Jeeps are and that it wasn't an action on us.
Good afternoon. Our top story is the latest development in the search for Madeleine McCann. Private investigators are now checking possible links with a convicted paedophile from here in the northwest who was in Praia da Luz in Portugal when she went missing. Well, with me now with more details on this is our reporter Ben Bland. Ben, what do we know about this paedophile?
Well, James, his name is Raymond Hewlett. He's 64 years old and originally from Todmorden. Now, he's being investigated after a couple who were in the resort in Portugal in May 2007 raised the alarm. They've only just done so. They're Alan and Cindy Thompson. They've spoken out because looking back, at the time they'd befriended him while they were on holiday, but looking back, a number of conversations they had with him seemed suspicious. They say they remember him saying he'd been to Morocco shortly after Madeleine disappeared, and you may remember there had been some sightings of a child that looked like Madeleine. In each case, either it turned out not to be or they simply couldn't trace the child. The Thompsons think that was suspicious because Raymond Hewlett and his wife were travelling around the region making a living by selling things. They're also suspicious because of Raymond Hewlett's past. It was only after they left the resort that they learned he'd been jailed over a number of sexual offences against young girls in the past. Those go back to 1972, when he abducted a 12-year-old and tried to rape her on the West Yorkshire moors. And then in 1978, he tried to rape another girl by holding a gun to her back. At the moment, Hewlett is in Germany in hospital. He denies the accusation. He claims to have been in a market in a town 30 miles away from the resort when Madeleine went missing, and says that he's done nothing wrong and that these accusations are simply based on his past.
OK, Ben Bland, thank you very much for the update this lunchtime. Next, the people of Salford know what I'm about. That's the message from Hazel Bliss as Labour held on to a council seat in her Salford constituency. Their candidate, Matt Mould, won the by-election in Owell Riverside by a majority of just over 300. It's the party's first real test of public opinion since the MP's expenses scandal, and they had feared that the BNP could pick up extra votes. In the end, the Lib Dems came second ahead of the far-right party's candidate. Oh, I'm sorry, we appear to have a slight problem on that report. We'll try to return to it later in the programme. Moving on, one of the latest MPs to be caught up in the row over his expenses says he will step down at the next election if his constituents demand it. Dr Ian Gibson, who represents Norwich North, has been accused in the papers of claiming for a flat in London where his daughter and her partner have lived rent-free. Tory MP Peter Luff has also had his claims put in the papers with allegations he claimed £17,000 on household goods over 4 years, including 2 sets of china. The mum of baby P has been put in prison indefinitely for causing or allowing the toddler's death. A boyfriend has been jailed for 12 years. The 17-month-old was abused in the months leading up to his death at his home in North London. Their lodger, Jason Owens, has also been put in prison indefinitely. A report into what happened has concluded the baby should have been put into care. A man from Oldham who held 2 paramedics hostage while brandishing a knife and shouting, "Here's Johnny," has been put behind bars. The court was told how the emergency workers were terrified and in absolute fear of their lives. British Airways has announced record losses of £401 million. The firm's putting it partly down to getting a fuel bill of almost £3 billion when prices rocketed last summer. 2,500 jobs have already gone and the remaining staff are now being offered unpaid leave and the option to go part-time. School children from across Greater Manchester could get the chance to win a tour of the new Olympic Park in London. The competition is starting, which has been officially kicked off by triple jumper and world record holder Jonathan Edwards in Gorton.
Well, the North West Development Agency, in conjunction with the Get Set education programme, are running a competition, and the idea is that young people will submit a piece of work on what inspires them about 2012. Say as a competition, we will judge them all, and the winner gets to come and visit the Olympic Park, which is very exciting. They can see the stadium under construction, also the velodrome, the Athletes Village. It really is a remarkable thing that's happening in the East End of London. I think what you see with Olympic and Paralympic athletes are just ordinary people who've got a talent, they make the most of it, and they achieve remarkable things. And I think the message behind that to young people is that, you know, through hard work and dedication and commitment, teamwork, committing yourself to be the best that you can be, you can make a lot more of your life than you would have done otherwise. And I think Olympic and Paralympic athletes set an example of that. It's almost like an education process. And plus, you've got the greatest sporting event on the planet coming to London in 2012. And it's something which will be, I think, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for young people to get involved with, whether it's coming to watch, whether it's as a volunteer, or through the Get Set education programme. There's a whole range of ways, and I think it's something which will enrich young people's lives.
A warning's going out to hooligans not to travel to Rome for Manchester United's Champions League final. Greater Manchester Police say they're working with their Italian counterparts and UEFA to make sure the occasion's not spoilt for genuine fans. Plainclothes officers are in place at the airport to spot any known troublemakers who could be trying to travel. Time now for a check on the lunchtime sports headlines with the details. Here's Ian Irving.
Thanks, James. Sale star Mark Cueto is set for yet more British Lions disappointment today. The Sharks full-back was overlooked when coach Ian McGeechan named his original squad last month. But an injury to Cardiff winger Lee Halfpenny earlier this week looked like giving Cueto a second chance. But the Lions boss is expected to choose England's Delon Armitage over him. Manchester City winger Sean Wright-Phillips will miss England's qualifiers against Kazakhstan and Andorra over the summer as he needs surgery on his injured knee. And City have completed their first signing of the summer with the capture of Schalke youngster Neil Zander. The 16-year-old full-back is yet to make his senior debut. He is not expected to go straight into the first-team squad. Of course, City are in action on Sunday at home to local rivals Bolton, and we'll be hearing from Mark Hughes on that game at 5 o'clock. And ahead of that match, Bolton have Andy O'Brien back from illness, but Ricardo Gardner still hasn't fully recovered from his hamstring injury. And despite having one game left, Wanderers manager Gary Megson is already looking at strengthening for next season.
I think it'd probably be a little bit easier to say which ones we don't. I think goalkeeping-wise, we're quite well stocked with UC, Ali and Adam. We're all right there, but as I say, we will have taken it right the way down after the game against City to 14 pros, outfield players, and that if it carried on, if it went from that point, it won't, but if it did, we would get relegated without a shadow of a doubt, because that's just not enough. So each and every position, we're looking to improve ourselves, and we've got to get the quantity up, but there's also got to be that quality there. It's a huge summer for Bolton.
Wigan's veteran goalkeeper Mike Pollitt has agreed terms on a new 12-month contract. His current deal expires this month, and despite being very much a backup, he's keen to sign up for another season. Well, Wigan could be without Antonio Valencia, Paul Scharner, Mido and Chris Kirkland for the trip to Portsmouth on Sunday, but one player who's definitely playing is Titus Bramble, who's just been named the Latics Player of the Year. And Wigan boss Steve Bruce is keen to end the year on a high after a disappointing run of late.
They're all big games in the Premier League, and we've had an awful run over the last 4 or 5 weeks. If we win tomorrow and Stoke don't get anything at Arsenal, then we can finish 11th. That's got to be our aim. And, you know, as I said, we've been disappointed the way we've tailed off in the last 5-6 weeks. But I am a believer in the league that wherever you finish, that's where you deserve to finish. And that's what this league is. You know, there's times where we're up and down a little bit, and unfortunately we've saved our worst run until the very end, which is always disappointing.
Manchester United are, of course, also playing. They're at Hull on Sunday as well. Manager Sir Alex Ferguson is expected to name a side of fringe players as the Reds boss looks to next week's Champions League final. We'll hear from him as well at 5 o'clock. And United have received a boost ahead of the Rome showpiece with the news that Andreas Iniesta and Thierry Henry are both doubtful for the game. Both players looked on course to play, but Barca manager Pep Guardiola has cast doubt on them being fit in time. On to Rugby League now, and Salford and Wigan are both in Super League action tonight. The Reds are at home to Bradford. Jeremy Smith is fit again, but Sean McRae's side could be unchanged. And Wigan travel to Warrington with Sean Ainscough and Sam Tompkins pushing for recalls. And finally for now, Oldham Athletic striker Matty Wolfenden has signed a short-term deal to stay at Boundary Park. New manager Dave Penny wants an injury-prone forward to prove his fitness ahead of next season, and he's been given a contract until the end of August to do so. And Macclesfield Town have made signing number 2 of the summer, bringing in Weymouth left-back Stephen Reid. Well, that's all you sport for now. We'll have more at 5 o'clock, but for now, back to James.
Ian, thanks very much for the update. Let's return now to the Salford council election and Hazel Blair's comments that the people of Salford know what I'm about. That as Labour held on to a council seat in her Salford constituency. Their candidate, Matt Mould, won the by-election in Irwell Riverside by a majority of just over 300 in the first real test of public opinion since the MP's expenses scandal. It had been feared the BNP could pick up extra votes, but in the end, the Lib Dems came second ahead of the far-right party's candidate.
We worked a hard campaign. It was difficult to mobilise our vote. I think the other parties suffered there. Also, the fact that there was so many candidates meant that the vote was split between all the candidates that were running as well, which will account for that, I would have said. Hazel's been absolutely fantastic throughout this campaign. She's given me an absolute bag's load of support. She's got my 110% support from me and from the CLP in Salford and Eccles as well. She's been nothing but an asset to this campaign. She's been fantastic on the doorstep, and the response with Hazel on the doorstep has been very, very positive indeed.
It was about Labour people in Salford endorsing a Labour council that's really trying to help them through the recession, keep them in jobs, keep a roof over their head and try and make sure that they can help business as well. So I think what the result is tonight is to say that the Labour Party's values are the values of Salford people, and they've shown it yet again by turning out and voting for Matt, who will be a fantastic councillor. I think it's a really good vindication of the Labour Party. As I've said before, I've been in the Labour Party for 30 years. I spent 8 years of my life in this town hall as a local councillor. People of Salford know me and they know what I'm about, they know what I'm made of. And tonight, I think we took the last 3 voters to the polls at 10 to 10 on the Duchy estate, and you know, it's paid off for us, so I'm delighted. Salford people completely reject the divisive, poisonous politics of the British National Party.
Lots more to come this Friday lunchtime, including the drivers of 4x4s who've fallen victim to Green campaigners, and we find out which celebrities people around here think have what it takes to be Prime Minister.
Steve Coogan.
Oh, Joanna Lumley.
Bear Grylls.
You're watching Channel M. This is the Lunchtime News. Don't forget our latest reports are always online at channelm.co.uk, and on the website at the moment you can see why Manchester has won praise in the latest tourist guide, and plenty of pictures from the Queen's tour of Greater Manchester and the big crowds that turned out to see her. That's at channelm.co.uk. A man from Oldham who held 2 paramedics hostage while brandishing a knife and shouting "Here's Johnny" has been put behind bars. The court was told how the emergency workers were terrified and in absolute fear of their lives. Georgia Calvin-Smith has more.
Leonard Hilton cleverly planned how he'd lure paramedics to his home before attacking them in a terrifying parody of the cult horror film The Shining. Lorna Wood and Philip James attended Hilton's call, in which he said that he'd slit his wrists. But once they arrived, Hilton locked them in and began threatening their lives with a kitchen knife. The pair managed to barricade themselves into the living room as their attacker continued to come after them, shouting the iconic line, "Here's Johnny." Miss Wood and Mr. James's ordeal ended when police broke into Hilton's flat and subdued him with CS gas. He's admitted 2 counts of false imprisonment, threats to kill and affray, and has been jailed indefinitely. Other paramedics hope that this sentence will send a strong message to those who'd seek to harm those whose job it is to help us.
Was he playing out a role? Was he being serious in respect of, trying to frighten the crew? And I'm sure at the time, if they hadn't been able to barricade themselves into his living room, then potentially, it could have been an awful lot more serious. And understanding that mindset, we need to eradicate that from society, where people think that that's, staff like our staff are fair game, and it really puts another tangent to my concerns over how people have viewed the ambulance service, the staff that they've asked to support them.
Dozens of 4x4 drivers have had their tyres let down by environmental activists in part of Chorlton and Fallowfield. They woke up to find some of them had been slashed and a note left on the windscreen to explain why. It's the 3rd time it's happened in a month.
Well, we've got in the car this morning. There's been a note on the front, on the windscreen, with a few bullet points saying how bad Jeeps are, and that it wasn't an action on us, but an action on the choice of our car. Got to the bottom of the road, obviously could feel things weren't right. I'm on the way to college from my exam at 9 o'clock in the morning. I had to turn around and seeing the tyre. Luckily we've got another car. It was a few minutes late to my exam, but it was nothing too late. And then the police have just came round before to take the print that was left.
Has anything like this ever happened before?
It hasn't, no.
The group behind this simply identify themselves as concerned Manchester activists. They say that given the threat of climate change, they feel that direct action such as this is necessary. But they insist they haven't damaged the cars, they've simply let the air out of the tyres. And they claim that they've done it to around 80 vehicles, all of them 4x4s, across the Chorlton and Fallowfield area.
I just don't think it's going to make an effect, really. I don't think it's really going to stop anyone buying Jeeps, or it's not the way to go about it. If you've got an issue with it, it's not the way to go about it.
Medical experts here in Greater Manchester are rounding up the final views on whether they should change their stance on assisted suicide. For the past 3 weeks, the topic's been discussed to see if the Royal College of Nursing should change its official stance on the issue. It follows a debate that was organised by Carol Haig, who joins us now. Carol, you've been pushing forward the discussion on this issue. What sort of reaction has it been getting?
Well, as I'm sure you're aware, it's a very emotive issue, and reaction does tend to be very polarised. There are people who are very firmly against it, very firmly for it.
You mentioned the sort of passionate views there. It must be quite hard trying to balance those up and reach some sort of consensus.
It is very difficult. There are nurses who see this as a real challenge to their professionalism. They do not feel they came into the profession to, as they perceive it, kill their patients. There are equally nurses who would say, we've been with patients every step of the way on their journey, why would we turn our backs on them at the very last minute? So passions run fairly high, yes.
Is it too early to know how the discussions and the comments have been going on this?
I suspect it is. There was a fringe event at RCN Congress last week and opinion was pretty much 50-50 in the room.
How pleased are you, though, with the response that the consultations had and that this issue has been getting such a good discussion, if you like?
Oh, absolutely delighted. The time is right to have this debate. Our medical colleagues are starting to be more open to the concept of assisted suicide. We've had 2 attempts to get an assisted dying for the terminally ill bill through government. And I think as the healthcare professions become more aware and more vocal about this, basically 85% of the general population are in favour of this as a concept. So it's really the health professions reacting to what our patients are asking us for.
And do we have any idea of when a decision will be reached on this?
We don't at the moment. I suspect there's been a good response to the consultation, although it's a little too early to say. But I'm very confident that the RCM will be producing the findings as quickly as possible. This is a very hot topic for us at the moment.
OK, Carol Haig, thank you very much
My
for joining
pleasure.
us this lunchtime. The AA is warning of big delays on the roads later as the bank holiday getaway starts. It's expected this afternoon will be the busiest of the weekend, with journey times lasting as much as 50% longer. BAA says almost 1.7 million passengers are expected to pass through its 7 airports. Engineering works on the railways are also going to add to the disruption, especially on Sunday. Forecasters are, though, predicting the hottest weekend of the year so far. Joanna Lumley has been named the female celebrity more people would like to see as Prime Minister than anyone else. X Factor judge Simon Cowell heads up the list, with Sir Trevor McDonald coming third. Also in the top 10 are Cheryl Cole, Fern Britton and Russell Brand. With that in mind, we've been out gauging opinion in Salford.
Steve Coogan.
Oh, Joanna Lumley.
Joanna Lumley, why is that?
Well, I think she's got the guts, you know, or Esther Ranson.
Alex Ferguson.
And why Alex Ferguson?
Because anything he touches turns to gold.
Who would you vote for and why?
Bear Grylls, because he's good in a situation where you don't have much.
Alan Carr can do a better job than what's already in, can't he?
Frank Gallagher.
From Shameless?
Yeah.
Why Frank Gallagher from Shameless?
He is top. He is top. I mean, he doesn't care what he says. He's a professional.
I would choose David Beckham.
Why David Beckham?
He's very popular and he's a nice guy. He's a family man. Yeah.
The long-running quiz show Countdown has now moved to Manchester. The programme's now set up at Granada Studios after 27 years of the show being made in Leeds. Host Jeff Stelling has joked he'd like to see big names like Sir Alex Ferguson and Wayne Rooney making guest appearances in Dictionary Corner. His assistant Rachel Riley says their new home's taken some getting used to and has admitted she's got lost in the new building. Coronation Street legend Jean Alexander says she's got no intention of retiring. It's 22 years since the 83-year-old left the Weatherfield cobbles. She's been speaking of her devastation after filming on Last of the Summer Wine was halted. The actress says she's been working since 1949 and will consider any new offers. Right, with the long weekend coming up, time now to take a check on what's happening in the world of entertainment with our entertainment editor Neil Sowerby. Neil, good afternoon. We're celebrating the birthday of a cultural icon.
Yes, Jordan is 31 today, but we at City Life, we're baking a cake for Stephen Patrick Morrissey. 2 sellout gigs celebrating his 50th at the Apollo. There won't be a dry eye in the house. We thought he wouldn't make it, he had vocal problems, but he rallied last week and said, "Hello, Great Yarmouth," but he's in his hometown tonight. Expect career-spanning, 30-year career-spanning set of songs, some Smiths numbers I expect. Great stuff.
Sounds good. What other music's on this weekend that we can look forward to?
We've got Maximo Park playing Academy, but more interesting, lots of little festivals. We've got Northern Quarter's Hungry Pigeon, 9 Black Alps are starring there. Euroculture, celebrating all things European, a bit eclectic around Oxford Road, and a bit more my thing, Strummer Camp, celebrating the great Joe Strummer at Manchester Rugby Club, the damned Billy Bragg appearing. Great stuff. And
finally as well, the big film for the weekend.
Oh, it's your favourite. You love Night at the Museum, #1, but you've got number 2 now, yeah. Well, same plot basically, but we've got Ricky Gervais, our own Steve Coogan, Ben Stiller. It's a perfect one for the kids next week, and for you, Jamie.
And I mean, those great to have all those cameo appearances in there as well. It's a good one, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, we get Robin Williams as well. Yeah, you think they're all scene steal, but it all quite works, you know. They all, yeah.
Oh, well, we'll look out for that, and no doubt there'll be plenty of special effects to keep us all amused in that one. If you want more details on that, or indeed anything else to keep you amused over the weekend, then do log on to the website, citylife.co.uk. With the bank holiday weekend ahead, let's take a look now at what the weather's got in store. Right, this afternoon mainly cloudy with some rain showers in most places at some point, some of them heavy. There will be some brighter spells though, the best of those in the south of the area. Highs of between 12 and 14 degrees in most places. Tonight that cloud will stay with us. Expect some light rain or drizzle if you are heading out, and lows down to 9 degrees. Moving on through the bank holiday weekend, and look at this, the temperatures are the biggest news. Highs of 21 for the next couple of the days, the best of the sunshine on Sunday before a little bit of cloud returns for Monday. This is Channel M. Our top stories. A convicted paedophile with links to Greater Manchester is being investigated over the disappearance of Madeleine. Private investigators hired by her parents are looking into claims that Raymond Hewlett was in Praia de Luz when she went missing. Labour have held on to a council seat in Hazel Blair's Salford constituency despite the row over MP's expenses. They won the by-election with a majority of 300 over the Lib Dems. An older man who held 2 paramedics hostage while brandishing a knife and shouting "Here's Johnny" has been put behind bars. The court was told how the emergency workers were terrified and in absolute fear of their lives. Those are today's headlines, and for the final time, that was the Lunchtime News. We hope that over the past 8 months you've enjoyed watching stories that matter to Greater Manchester on this programme as much as we've enjoyed bringing them to you. Andy Crane's still here every night from 5, but from me and the Lunchtime team, goodbye and thank you for watching.